Coaches, welcome to another episode of Coaching Youth Hoops. I am your host, Coach Bill Flitter. Today we have a guest, Shea Balish from Curv Health. Welcome to the show, Shea.
Bill, thanks for having me. Excited to dive in.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart as well as Shay's, which is sports nutrition, strength and mobility, and mental performance. And Shay's going to be joining us for a four-part series on this particular topic. As coaches, we put so much emphasis of what we see and do on the court. But there's a huge part that is always missing, which is the mental side of the game, the game behind the game, if you will. We talk about it, if you listen to the show for a while, we talk about our red dot framework, which is the game in the court and the game in your head. And, it goes beyond just the game in your head because it also talks about our big component is nutrition, right? So Shay, I'd love for our listeners, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your sports background. I know you have one, and
Yeah.
tell us about Curve Health.
Well, Bill, first of all, thanks for having me. I always love these like really authentic chats. We can go back and forth and describe ourselves. So yeah, happy to be a little self-indulgent and give you my background. Probably the first interesting thing to note is I'm a horrible Canadian. I don't play hockey at all. I never skated. I'll be honest, I don't even like the sport that much. I was a basketball kid. So growing up in rural East Coast Canada, all I did was focus on basketball. I ended up playing at the university level. I coached for a couple years at the university level as an assistant, coached some quite competitive kind of high school, late adolescent youth, and ended up kind of falling in love with science. Not so much academia, but with science. Ended up doing a PhD in sports psychology. Really was always interested in the mind. Um, that kind of took me on the professor academic route, right? So
Hmm.
ended up holding a research fellowship at the University of Toronto, doing more foundational research, not so much applied, but more foundational theories of motivation in health contexts. But loved it and always kept, a foot in sport. Was, downtown Toronto when the Raptors won
Sweet.
the championship. So was really enjoying that at the time. But yeah, I left academia to start a company, and I'll try not to ramble too much here, but kind of a little bit of the context today is just talking about my journey and what we're trying to do with Curve Health, I guess. But we started um, really with this thesis that there's so many great health and performance resources for professional athletes. And it's
Mhm.
obvious they have the money for it. But when you look at the competitive youth level, there just wasn't really these same resources for competitive kids. And I think if you're in sport, you probably recognize sports are really about kids. It's a great vehicle for character development, for healthy habits. And you want to bring these resources, you can call them sports science resources or health and performance resources. You want them to bring them down to the youth level, but there was just an economic barrier to do that. Now we kind of recognized there was some pretty cool advancements happening in technology and software that were going to start to make it actually economically viable and quite practical to bring these tools to the youth level. And so that's what we set out to do with building Curve Health. And I'm happy to get into it a little bit later. Of course, we've had a really fun journey. We've raised a bunch of venture capital. The NFL has actually invested in us. We went down to the Super Bowl one year and met everyone.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, we've had some fun journeys, but that's kind of a little bit about me and kind of what I'm doing now.
Yeah, no, thanks. Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. And I'm really just curious. Well, I'll start off this way. I think as a basketball coach, we have all of these things in the back of our mind: sports psychology, nutrition, right, strength and mobility, but we don't know how to do a lot of this, right? And as you mentioned, it's expensive. If your local public school probably is not going to have a sports psychologist on staff. Now they'll have counselors, but a little bit different, nutritionalists, right? All those important things, and it's if you actually step back and think about it, with all the emphasis on sports at the high school level, it's kind of strange not to have those. But I get it why they don't. But it
Yeah.
hours and hours spent on the court and the field and the gym, right? It's it's crazy to think that that is not part of the curriculum of sports at the high school level. So along
Yeah.
comes Curve Health to solve that problem, make it reasonable for parents and parents to get involved into you know get the help their kids really need on that side. But my question to you is, okay, I'm a coach, basketball coach. I make, you know, next to nothing. But, if you break it all down, it's probably 30 cents per hour. Now you're asking me to add something on top of my busy schedule already. So walk me through how Curve works with coaches.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to hit on that point of the problem,
Yeah,
right? It's, a big part of what I described of why we're building Curve Health is we can use these software tools, which are far cheaper than any of these hardware tools, right? We bring in
yeah,
force plates and all these measurements. That's just too much. It's too much work. But when you make it software, it makes it much cheaper. But that's only solving part of the problem, right? You're
right.
nailing. Look, I've been a basketball coach. I get it. While I was doing my PhD, I was coaching a competitive youth basketball team in East Coast Canada, and you're doing 3 or 4 practices a week. You're dealing with parents. You don't have time. And so obviously we recognize this, and bringing in sports science tools shouldn't it cannot be a burden. It cannot take up more time. So how do you make it seamless and easy? And again, fortunately, with software, you can make it a couple clicks, right? You make it a streamlined, frictionless process. Um, if it was hardware, which we are not hardware, thank God, it would be far more costly. The coaches would have all these pieces of equipment they'd have to lug around. This is just drag and drop. It's a couple clicks. So the way it works for coaches, and I don't want to come off too salesy, but I'm pretty proud of this, right? Like it's really simple. So we sound coaches all the time. So the hardest part is getting our message out. Once we get our message out and coaches are like, oh my goodness, I can bring in these sports science tools for all my athletes, maybe introduce sports science, whether it be sports psychology or sport nutrition or injury prevention for the very first time in these kids' lives as they're coming through their athletic career.
And I want to just stop you
And
right there because I think what I don't want to glance over that point, which is a lot of this is new. And
yeah.
we know it. It's there in the back of our minds a little bit, but I think the idea of making it accessible is so key, and that's what you guys are doing.
Oh, and that's the whole thesis, right? Like,
Yeah.
look, I watch a little bit of pro sports, a little bit of NBA, right? I was a Kevin Garnett fan with the Timberwolves. I watched the
Oh,
Timberwolves a little
wow.
bit,
Yeah.
but I don't really care about the pro athletes. Everyone there is so pampered. They've got all the resources, the
Right.
real meaningful. And this is why I'm assuming all your coaches that are watching this are coaching, like donating their time, as you highlighted. Maybe they're getting
Right.
paid a little bit, but really donating their time is they just want to give back to the game. They want to give back to the kids. And so that's what we're really trying to do with Curve is make it accessible and easy. So to answer your question, we sign up coaches all the time. We give them a link. They put their contact information. I'm interested. Here's my name. Here's my email. We send them a personalized link for their team that they just put out in a simple group chat or on TeamSnap, whatever it is. They send the link to their athletes, say, hey, kids, this is free. Download this app, go through the evaluation process. And then coaches, a little while later, get back a kind of team personalized or team based report on the kind of unmeasurables of their athletes. Maybe they get to start to understand the mental skills makeup of their athletes. They get to understand the nutritional health, the sleep health of their athletes. They get to understand a little bit more about injury risk. And they can start to incorporate some of these aspects as they see fit into their coaching. So, for example, right? And this is how we kick things off. We love to do these simple reports. So it's like, hey, coaches, sign up and you're going to share this link with your athletes and get a report. It's literally less than 5 minutes. But the coaches love the report. So, for example, the report may come back and say, hey, your kids are really struggling, or they're explaining, they're highlighting that they're struggling with some performance anxiety. Maybe
Mhm.
they're really nervous, or they feel like the stakes are so high for every single minute they're on the court for every game. And maybe you can start to talk about more composure or poise in your practices, or put them in more scenarios where they feel more comfortable with that stimulus of a high performance or a high stakes context, right? So the coaches do love those aspects. The parents end up loving it because the parents think that their kid's a little more informed, right? They're starting to get
Yeah.
kind of education around their mental, physical, and kind of mechanical health, or their biomechanical or their body health. And they can start to, develop the habits to own it and take responsibility for their own health. And this is an important time when kids are usually just addicted to their phones and, eating junk food all the time.
Well, and I want to, you bring up a really good point. I was just at a tournament this weekend and I was watching one of my high school players play for her high school team. And it's someone I've trained. Can't believe it, she's a senior already. I've been working with her since she was in the second grade. Little rec league we had here all the way through. She joined my club team. I've trained her. She gives back to the community quite a bit, also as a coach, as you know, and that's always you always want to see that with your kids that you're working with. To my point though, her mom came up to me as I was watching her game and she says, "Oh, did you watch her play?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, and I didn't say I noticed something was just a little bit off. And she says, "Oh yeah, her coach is just riding her hard that, he literally said, your defense sucks." I'm like, "Whoa, okay." So she's playing scared at this point.
Yeah.
So in the assessment, that's going to come out, I'm assuming, right? Or maybe if the coach or the if the player doesn't call the coach out specifically on his words, because then he's going to know who specifically said that. But this idea that, coaches cause the anxiety as well, and coaches need to be aware that they're doing that. And coaching a kid today is different than when you and I grew up. And especially me, I'm a little bit older than you are. So, it was the, um, hard nose, you could get away with saying that a kid was, lazy on defense, or my coach's favorite saying was, "You're an oxygen thief," right? Just sucking up oxygen on the court, right? Get to
Yeah.
work, right? And that was supposed to motivate us to, which, probably to some point did, but maybe ruined me for the rest of my life, right? In my performance. But can you dive into that in a little bit more detail? And I know in future episodes, as we dive into these very specific areas, we're going to talk about it, specifically sports psychology. But I want action as a coach. Great, you got this nice report. Beautiful. So what?
Absolutely. So really, I mean, it's important maybe to take a little step back and explain kind of what we do, and then the types of insights in particular for kind of mental skills, or if you want to call it sports psychology. Curv is a digital sports science platform. It is a tool for coaches. It is
Hmm.
a really powerful arrow in the quiver of a coach. And while they may not have been trained in sports psychology or mental performance or nutrition or injury prevention, they can now bring in tools that help monitor and measure and introduce their competitive adolescent athletes, these youth athletes, with these things, and start to get a report based on how we know to measure these things and how we know to inform the coach about them. And definitely one of the hottest areas right now, understandably, is the mental skills of athletes. And I don't want to make too many claims around different generations, but I think a lot of coaches, well, what I'm hearing is that a lot of coaches are saying that their kids have kind of been so insulated from failure that the kind of this the beauty of sport is that
Mm,
it gives kids a lot of opportunities for authentic but very safe failures, you know? And that's kind of almost like a in the sports psychology world, we sometimes call that, and this is not a great term to use these days, but like the failure vaccination hypothesis, where what sports does for youth athletes is it gives them all these little experiences where they can have authentic wins and authentic failures. And it sets them up for life and gives them thicker skin and helps
mm,
them go about and
yeah,
navigate the real world. And because kids have been a bit robbed of these failures, or they're not getting their failure vaccine through sport,
yeah,
every time they're coming into contact with some form of failure. And look, that's life is full of failure, as it should be, right? It's a learning process that they're really struggling mentally. And so we end up trying to inform the coaches about this, and of course, there's some old school coaches that don't believe in this stuff, and there's some new school coaches that are all over it, but everyone that gets the report ends up learning something. So again, this is a digital platform. The athletes, when they sign up, when the coach sends them the link, they download an app, they go through an evaluation process. We've got really cool tools in there. It's not just forms, it's not just messaging. We've got patented AI-powered computer vision assessments where the kids move in front of their camera and our AI will evaluate their biomechanics and give feedback on injury risk and other things. So there's a lot of really frontier tools in there. It's one of the reasons the NFL invested in us. And yeah, it ultimately uh, informs the coach about the things they need to be aware of. Now, what gets overlooked a little bit, and I'll hand the mic back to you after
oh no,
this,
you're
is
good, yeah,
uh, importantly the athletes, the youth also become informed, right? This is their
right.
first introduction. And this is the beautiful point. I would say we get a lot of coaches that use our platform because they just want to win. And rightfully so, right? Rightfully
Right.
so. This is sports is about, it's a competition. It's about winning. It's about striving to be your best. However, a lot of the coaches do it philanthropically because they're trying to give back to the kids and introducing them to sports science. Being there, the kids' first introduction to sports science is really valuable. We get a lot of parents that love that their athletes are working on their mental skills with us because the parents will say, well, I don't think little Johnny or little Sarah needs mental counseling or therapy, right? And there's some stigma with that. But I still want them like they don't, they're surviving, but I want to help them thrive. And that's where sometimes sports psychology can come in and help them develop different tools that are more performance oriented. So it's not healthcare, but it's performance coaching, and the tools that these kids learn, they end up taking them on to other endeavors, whether it be their career or
Mm.
their education. So yeah, it's pretty fun.
Let's dive into what you talked about because I think it's a really important subject that's all interrelated to this, which is this idea of that we have robbed our kids of failure, right? We want to protect them, insulate them, and you can see it, since it's a basketball podcast, right? You can see it on the court. My son isn't getting the playing time, right? Or why? I mean, I've had a situation when I was coaching high school. Parent cornered me coming out of the locker room after a game, saying why my daughter is getting what was she getting 24 only 24 minutes in the game, and she's the first one pulled out. And she's like in my face about it. I'm like, that out of a 32-minute game, that's pretty good, But she didn't see it that way, right? Uh,
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
there
and
it,
in in this idea of like you said, okay, yeah, I'm sitting you because you didn't perform in practice. Well, mom and dad are going to bail me out now, right? And that's the mentality that we have. And I don't know if you have any, if you want to add to that, but this idea of we need to have kids fail to succeed. Why did that change? Do you have an opinion on that?
ooh. Um, there's a number of things.
Especially in sports, right? And I'll add that, right?
Yeah, there's a number of things. There's a one of my favorite social psychologists, Jonathan Haidt. He recently published the I think the Anxious Generation. I think that's the book, but he has a number of different books.
Yeah.
He's really good at, I think he goes a little too far, but he does diagnose it, I think, quite correctly. Part of it's generational, parenting styles, and at some point, self-esteem became this like sacred goal, and
Hmm.
parents believed that just promoting self-esteem at all costs and insulating any type of attack on self-esteem.
Hmm.
So, and parents, parents are the bane of coaches' existence, but you can't blame them. They love their children so much, and
That's
that
right.
love
Yeah.
turned toxic, right? So I think part of it's a parenting style that is starting to start to hopefully change, right? Free range parenting is coming back, free range kids where they can run around and get in trouble. That's, I think, luckily the tide is turning on that. But the other big thing is social media now, and kids recognize today that, one false slip up and one of their friends are filming them at school, and then they're the laughing stock of the school. And so they recognize that any little action now can be recorded and become an embarrassing moment, and they can essentially experience like social ostracism or like their social identity can die is a really scary thing. And the kids aren't so irrational to think that it's just a scary environment for them. And I think that gets pulled over into sports. The final thing is that there's just too much internalization, too much thinking. Everyone's in their head, especially after COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
So
we
true.
got to get back into our bodies, get out moving, stop thinking so much. Thinking too much can definitely be a bit of a disease, and
Right.
just go out there and run around and get in trouble and have some fun.
Yeah. And I think that's the key is really having fun. And how do you balance this next, we'll call it the kind of leveling up of the athlete. So again, I'm a coach, I'm focused, I want you to have the best crossover dribble and best shot. And now you're adding this other element to it, which is the nutrition, the sports psychology, right? The strength and performance. That in itself can cause stress, right? The idea of layering more things on top of my six AP classes that I already
Yes,
already have. So again, kids are under this stress and pressure. How do you how does a coach help an athlete through that it's shouldn't be added stress. It should actually help you with stress and off the court and on the court.
absolutely. The biggest problem with, I think, any type of tool for coaches or teachers or parents
Yeah,
is that someone will go and sell a coach or a teacher a tool and not
yeah,
really think about if the kid wants to use that tool or not. It's like, hey,
right.
coach, go force this onto your athletes. It's like, that's not how we started with this company. We only will be successful. And I think, are starting to really, I think, grow fast, and we're starting to see some success. If the kids, we're only going to be successful if the kids want to do these things, if this is a valuable platform, right? And first of all, it can't feel like homework, right? It almost
Yeah, that's
should,
right.
and we don't want it to feel like a video game either. We don't want it to be sugar for the brain, like an addictive social media thing.
Right.
We want to be this like, how do we build this like vegetable for the brain that the kids actually want to eat? And what we really do is just help them feel like they're leveling up their core qualities that they care about. Kids, as they're going through, puberty, going through adolescence, building their own identity, they're recognizing they want to have certain qualities. They want to be poised. They want to have composure. They want to have leadership. They want to
Yeah.
um, have confidence. And when they start to get educational content and coaching and insight into some of these qualities, and it's not being forced from their coach, right? Or importantly, it's not being forced by their parent. It's this third party platform that's really making it kind of self-serve in some ways. Or, we actually connect. our youth, some youth athletes that want to, with real sports psychologists that are, have worked with in the pro level, that have come from great institutions. We can connect them with it. The kids really get engaged and really, really love it. The same thing with nutrition. We don't give hyper detailed nutrition plans to these kids, these athletes.
Right.
They're eating what their parents make them, but we educate them so they can start to feel like they're taking control. They can vocalize to their parents, well, I'd like to maybe, I think I should actually increase my protein intake. I'm not getting much protein at all. I'm getting way too many carbs throughout the day. And I need a little bit more protein, however I do that. So we give them we give them these tools, this education, that's evidence-based, that's well-informed, and yeah, it's really empowering for these kids. The same thing with injury risk, right? Injury risk goes a long way. Kids love to use our tools to measure their flexibility and their strength. I mean, one of the like I keep saying this, and I'm sorry for name dropping, but the reason the NFL invested in us is they wanted to build a digital combine. They wanted to see, hey, what if we could measure the athleticism or the talent of anybody with a
Mm,
mobile phone? We don't got to drop in hardware and force plates into random areas of the world. We can just have anyone with a phone film themselves, and we can get
interesting.
objective measures of their athleticism. And so when kids start to measure these things, they get excited about it and they want to improve it. So yeah, we make it engaging for the kids. That's our North Star. The youth are our North Star. The parents and the coaches um, are our allies, and our kind of way we distribute these tools and the way we're aligned with them. They're our partners because they want the best for the kids themselves, and so do we.
So talk to me about uh the and if you have any stories to share about the what set my expectations. I'm trying to form the right question here, which is the performance, we'll call it performance boost I might see with my players if let's assume that they're fully engaged with what you guys are doing. I mean, is just, is understanding sports psychology, strength and mobility, mental performance, is it just talk? Or, can I, well, and I kind of know some of those answers that it isn't, but for those skeptics out there, can I
Yeah.
can I expect a boost in performance?
Um, Yes, and you absolutely can, with the caveat that there is no silver bullet for anything.
Correct. Yeah,
No,
that's
there's
right.
no magic bullet in life, right? So if you're a coach thinking that you're going to turn on Curve and the next day seeing these magical improvements, well, no, it's a process. But coaches know that, right? They know that. What you will see quite quickly is you'll see the athlete, like the few keeners that you have will start to show some interesting behaviors, right? They might come into a practice and go, yeah, why aren't I just making my teammates better? I'm coming in, and how about I become this like powerful source of like motivation and light? And they'll be the ones like being really talkative in the gym, on the court, and motivating and setting kind of a really cool, positive, fun, exciting tone in practice. And you're like, wow, that kid really is leading our culture. They're setting a cultural tone. I like that because the kid has gone through some of our sports psychology, and they're recognizing that the best way they can improve their own performance is to start to make other athletes feel like they're getting better, and they're fun to be around, making practice more enjoyable and engaging. You may see some of these athletes start to take their pregame routines a little more seriously. They might start stretching,
Hmm.
might start cooling down after practice a little bit better. They may start doing those preventative exercise. You may have some young females that are, looking to prevent ACL injuries, which we know are unfortunately rampant in female basketball. They might be doing some preventative exercises and stretching, and you might see three girls do it the first week, and then six girls the next, then all of a sudden the whole team's doing it a little bit, right? You may
Yeah.
also see the hydration and the kind of the
Mm-hmm.
nutrition. You go away on a trip on a weekend, and you may see the kids starting to order different things, even if you take them to a fast food restaurant. Um, so yeah, it's really around, empowering athletes with the right education and right tools. And ultimately that's really what this is. The coaches do it for a performance benefit, and they do end up, improving over time. But they also, coaches come back to us and they say, I just feel good that I was able to introduce these competitive kids to sports science for the first time and in a really engaging, enjoyable way. We're giving out, a lot of free value with this. And if some of the kids after the free trial want to, stick around and work with some of our experts or professionals or work on various things, they can pay a simple monthly fee. Usually it's the parents that are pushing it because they love what they see with their kids.
Yeah.
Um, but ultimately, yeah, that's the way to see the impact.
Yeah, no, and that's good. I've noticed it just even the way I coach, and when we started talking about this game in your head and the game on the court, and that just that little bit of now I'm an avid reader, and I don't have a PhD in sports psychology by any stretch of the means, but enough understanding to see that if I can boost the confidence of an individual, it's going to show up on the court and in performance and in their life, which I think is even most important. And if we kind of change the way we approach coaching, we're not just we shouldn't just be focused on the sport. We should be focused on the entire athlete. And sports is this teacher to set them up for life. And that's the message, that we're trying to get across as well. Okay, Shay, so you mentioned that you are giving away some free tools. We've partnered with you to provide some of those free resources to our coaches. And coaches, if you go to coachingyouthhoops.com/health, again, that's coachingyouthhoops.com/health, Shay's going to tell us about a wonderful opportunity for teams to get involved with Curv.
Yeah, no, we're at a time where we really want to empower more coaches. We've been testing this. We've been bringing on a lot of coaches, a lot of different sport organizations, groups, companies. But now we wanna really offer this. And we thought, I mean, selfishly, I thought the basketball coaching community would be a great place to start.
Of course it is. It's the
Um,
best place to start.
so the first thing to note, really quick, like really simply, is
Yeah,
we're offering a really easy way to get started with Curve, right? So you're going to have a sign up page. You're going to be able to read through what it is, but ultimately what we want to do is provide value for you coaches with the least amount of work possible. So you can simply sign up, put your name in. We'll send you a personalized link for your team. You share that with your athletes. Say, athletes, go download the app, you know, go through the evaluation process. It takes minutes, not hours. And after that, once we get enough of your athletes, ideally all of them, we'll aggregate a report and share it back with the coaches so they can start to understand a little bit more about their team. And they may understand things about their athletes that their athletes might be scared necessarily to tell them or to tell their parents, right? You can start to see across these categories your mental skills, right? Nutrition, sleep. We actually do track sleep if the athletes choose to share their sleep data. We also track injury prevention and then athleticism. And so we share these reports back with the coaches. And it's dead simple, easy to get started, entirely free. The way we actually monetize with the kids. So right, it's going to be free for the coaches forever. But right now we're giving all your athletes a free trial for the rest of the basketball season. So just get on, enjoy it. If it's valuable for you, you can bring it as coaches, you can bring it into your teams you're going to coach next year or the years after. And it can be this amazing, again, tool in your tool belt or arrow in your quiver to coach your athletes and introduce sports science for the very first time. So then again, be informed about the athletes that you're working with so you can coach them better. Now, if you really want to dive in, if the athletes that work with us really want to dive in, their parents or them, but likely it's the parents paying for it, can sign them up on a monthly subscription. We have varying pricing, but we've made it relatively, cost effective, not much more than like a Netflix subscription.
right.
And these athletes can work on their mental skills, their nutritional health, their sleep health, their athleticism and injury risk, strength and mobility. With real experts we have, we can give those athletes access to them, as well as a number of different tools so they can measure themselves and take their own improvement, their own performance into their own hands. So,
Well, and I think what's magical about this too is the access to the information and the professionals that you do have at such a reasonable cost as well. I mean, obviously, right now we're giving there's a lot of free information that you're providing to coaches, that are listening right now. But even after that, like if you wanted to do this on your own, that's three different people that you're contacting and paying on an hourly basis for nutrition, for strength and mobility, right? For sports
ab-
psychology, you're aggregated in that in one place and making, bringing the cost down because of that. Um, Shay, any last words you want to share? Again, let's give that URL out one more time. Go to coachingyouthhoops.com/health to find out more information. And I think you and I have been talking about, we want to get at least 50 coaches signed up. Um, you know, get them in, get some feedback, have them try out the system, and we'll see. And so hurry, coaches, get over there. Again, it's absolutely free to get started for your team. We're interested in getting. Shay's interested too in getting feedback and how you're going to use the tool, how to incorporate within your team. I just think it's that little bit of edge that one, you can give your team for performance, but two, just setting the kids up for life in an area that you may not be educated in. And that's really what we're trying to do, is set the kids up for life. But Shay, any last words before we sign off? And you're going to be back. We're going to dive into several more topics, deep dive right into these three separate areas. So, coaches, this isn't the last time you heard from Shay today. So we'll come back with a lot more information for you.
yeah, no, the main thing is that, the whole purpose of Curve is to make sports science helpful and practical and cost effective for who matters most in the sporting world, the youth, right? So we're
Yeah.
giving these tools to our coaches so they can, of course, improve the performance of their team, but also introduce these kids to sports science for the first time, health and performance tools that hopefully they'll take with them and it'll mold them for the rest of their life. They'll take more ownership in their mental performance, right? We don't do mental health, we do mental performance. And these kids can take these tools and apply them throughout their life. The same thing with nutrition, sleep, injury prevention, athleticism. We're giving these kids a first introduction. It's not like homework. The kids get excited to do it. They can build out a profile on Curve. There's a lot of value in there. We're always learning. So we really want to partner with coaches. If coaches are really interested, they want to dive into this and effectively become ambassadors for us, like I'll jump on a meeting with you. We can chat on the phone. We can figure out really how we can make this better for you as coaches. So we're always trying to really be close with our customers and understand so we can improve it. And I'm excited to chat. And Bill, I really appreciate you bringing us on. I mean, selfishly, I'm a big basketball guy, so I was excited to be here. But it's a great community to kick this off with. This is the first coaching community we've ever partnered with, and I'm really excited to kind of launch this out and see the feedback.
Yeah, Shay, I appreciate you and looking forward to future episodes diving into these extremely important topics for youth and coaches. So, Shay, thank you for your time today. We appreciate it, and we will see you soon. Coaches, thank you for your time as well. I think you're going to enjoy this series that we have coming up with Shay, and very, really important topics, outside the X's and O's. I think it's important to always uh, bring up in the narrative as we talk improving athletes' lives. Coaches, till next time, take care, and we'll see you on the court. Shay, thank you.
Thank you, Bill.